Hi, I'm Lonnie with Untitled Nerd Network, coming to you from Wizard World Nashville on day 3. We're here on Sunday, and I'm here with the zombie king himself, Arthur Suydam.
Good to see you, man.
Thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
It's
awesome
awesome
to come to Nashville.
I have seen your work everywhere. The Walking Dead. I've even personally, I'm a really big fan of the all-female X-Men series. You did a variant cover for the number 1. I grabbed it because I'm a huge Jubilee fan, and you had the Walking Deadpool cover. So that was really, aside from Marvel Zombies, my first introduction to your work.
My work, okay.
Now, I want to say, like, have you always drawn zombies and stuff like that, or like, how did that come about?
Well, that came about because I'm actually classically trained, and my training is 16th century Dutch and Italian, based on the notes of Leonardo da Vinci, Raphael, and Michelangelo. They rebuilt the school, and the school was 4 blocks from my house. So when I graduated high school, actually the publishers, DC Comics and Warren Publishing, they tried to hire me right when I was out of high school, but I told them I'm still in school. Wait till you graduate. And after I graduated, I went looking for, because I had scholarships to any university in New Jersey that I wanted to go to. I had a full state scholarship, but I couldn't find any schools that were that taught what I wanted to learn, the courses, the curriculum that I was interested in, which was classical anatomy studies. So for years I went looking for a school that was teaching classical techniques, and then finally a new one just opened up in New York City. Ended up being 4 blocks from my house, where I live in the East Village in New York, and that's where I went to school. And so the focus of the program was really anatomy, so it's figure drawing and anatomy. So we had to do a lot of work with cadavers. So it was very similar to medical school, except our work was restricted, I'll say, to muscles and tendons and then fat deposits. So we didn't deal much with internals, but so the med students had the cadavers during the day, and then during the evening we art students had access to them. So I worked with cadavers for like 2 years, from about 9 in the morning till 6 at night, and then that just kind of stuck with me. So my interest in being able to basically learn the drawing techniques of the Renaissance masters. I'd seen the drawings of Leonardo and Michelangelo, and that's what I wanted for myself. I wanted to basically learn those skills, and that's what I applied myself to. And so I spent 40 years of myself applying myself to that. And I grew up watching horror movies, film noir movies, and reading comic books. So you put all that together, and this is what you get. This zombie phenomenon is what you get.
I love it. You're not the first person in your family to do art, though.
That's correct, right.
Tell us a little bit about the family history, because it goes back a long way from what I've read.
Yeah, it goes back actually to the 16th century. The family came over to North America before there was a United States in the 16th century to help us to fight in the Indian Wars on the Hudson River, to help establish a trading post on the Hudson River. That trading post ended up becoming New Amsterdam, so a Dutch colony, and then that ended up becoming New York, so the state of New York. And so the Suydams were, they were relative in the development of that area. And then later on in the 18th century, there were a series of 12 artists that won American Fine Artist recognition for the first time worldwide, and 2 of those were Suydam artists. 2 of those were Suydams. One was, they were called the Hudson River artists, Hudson River painters. This was right at the advent of the Civil War. Initially, it used to be thought that the only good artists come from France, come from Holland, and from Denmark, and from England. That there were no qualified artists, fine artists in the United States. That was until these dozen painters came along. They were called the Hudson River painters. They painted the Hudson River Valley, and coincidentally, 2 of those were Suydams. So one was John Suydam, and one was Henry Suydam. Awesome. And then later on in the 1920s, America's foremost architectural artist was E.H. Suydam. So those guys, basically, their focus were landscapes. So they were landscape painters. I'm really the latest Suydam, and I paint zombies.
Oh, now the stuff that you've done across various companies is like the who's who. You've done covers of The Walking Dead, obviously.
Right,
I mean,
right.
you're like the premier zombie artist, so of course you've done The Walking Dead.
Right.
Marvel Zombies, which some of the most iconic comic book covers,
That's
in my
really what
personal
started it. Marvel Zombies is really what started the whole zombie phenomenon. What was Marvel Zombies? I'm told by some of the people that work at Marvel that was the best-selling trade of all time for Marvel. And then we followed that up with 2 other zombie series that all became bestsellers. We did Army of Darkness versus Marvel Zombies after that, which I'm told that was the bestseller of all time for that publisher. And then we did Raise the Dead. So we had these 3 huge zombie series, and that's actually what started the kind of made zombies like the hula hoop in the United States, and that's what started the whole zombie phenomenon.
Yeah, that was interesting because Robert Kirkman worked on those
correct.
before The Walking Dead.
Well, that's what put him on the map. Robert Kirkman and Tony are the ones who created The Walking Dead. They created it in 2003. My understanding is that they pitched it. They were pitching it in 2003, 2004, and that it didn't get picked up by any studios, so it just got rejected by everybody. But then, as I said, when we worked together on Marvel Zombies, that changed everything. So that put him on the map as a legitimate writer and a legitimate creator, and it opened up the door for 4 years later for Walking Dead to get signed. So I'm told.
Oh, so in a way, Arthur is partially responsible for The Walking Dead.
Well, for getting it on TV. Those guys created the comic book, but it wasn't really doing very well. Nobody was reading it. I mean, it was selling so poorly that that's why Tony quit the series. And this is going nowhere, so he quit it. And it wasn't Marvel Zombies is what put zombies back on the map, and then it gave credibility to the creator and the writer and to all these other guys as well. So it was a good thing for everybody, really.
You've done covers, the Army of Darkness, the Misfits, Batman, Wolverine, X-Men, Ghost Rider, Thor. It's like the who's who. But you also have some other stuff, like actual projects of your own.
Right.
And those, I'm curious because I've not actually seen it, but I'm curious about the adventures of Charlie and Flytrap.
Okay.
The name got me. What
all
are
right,
we looking
so you've
at?
never read it? You never saw it? Okay,
no,
that's
I never
interesting.
have.
Okay, those were, that's actually, so I'm credited for being one of the guy, if not the guy, one of the 2 guys that introduced painted work to comics. So our work back in the late 70s, early 80s, I'm the first guy, I'm told, that actually brought painted work to comics. Okay. And when I came to DC Comics in 1971, I came with oil-painted comic books and watercolor-painted comic books. And if you remember correctly, they were printing on newsprint then. Yes. So then what happened was there were a couple artists over in France that started a magazine over there specifically for artists, for trained artists, and that was called Metal Hurlant, and that ended up being imported to the United States as Heavy Metal magazine. And so the Heavy Metal kind of stole me away from DC Comics, and I wanted to work for Heavy Metal because they printed on glossy paper and they could print painted work, and they let me. I was writing for. I wasn't writing for kids, I was writing for mature audiences, and so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to paint comics, and so that opened up the door for me. So I went there, and I stayed there for like 30 years working for that magazine. And so Charlie and Flytrap actually was characters that they hired me to create for the movie. So initially the movie poster for the Heavy Metal movie was Charlie and Flytrap flying on a bat. And then later on they decided that for marketing reasons they wanted to try to sex it up a little bit, so they turned it into a girl with big boobs riding on a pterodactyl, if you remember the image.
Yes.
But that was me. That was originally Charlie and Flytrap, and all the concept art that I designed for the movie ended up becoming the first scenario, the first little short story. That was an anthology movie, a collection of little short stories. And so Charlie and Flytrap became like the first story in there. And then I kept the characters, and then I continued to draw them for Heavy Metal. And then when they started to print them out of order, they printed the stories out of order because they were in a particular order, was an ongoing serial strip. And then I took them away from Heavy Metal, and I got I was the first artist invited to draw for Epic Illustrator from Marvel Comics. They put out a magazine that could also print painted work, because we started a trend. It was like me and then a small collection of guys started this trend of painted artists doing comic books, and then it really caught on. And so Marvel jumped on the bandwagon. They opened up Epic Illustrated, and I worked for Epic Illustrated, and I continued to do the Charlie and Flytrap stories for Epic Illustrated.
Okay. Now, this is another thing that there's a lot of stuff about you that I did not know until I went digging.
All right.
And one of the things is you're a musician.
Correct.
I got to hear about this. Like, what kind of stuff do you do?
Well, my forte is really Americana. So, my forte is Chicago blues, Cajun music, Zydeco music, rockabilly is my specialty. My father was a country western musician. All my relatives were all bluegrass musicians. So that was just a natural thing. I grew up on that music.
You come from a talented family. I mean, I'm kind of like getting that vibe. Like,
I hear you.
All through the years,
They could do some things, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, my mother painted, and my father, he was a country western musician. And once he got married, he really couldn't perform professionally anymore. But he just really stayed with it and always played at home. And then he brought his records. He brought the Hank Williams records in the house, and so I kind of grew up listening to the best of Hank Williams. That's a double album set. That was on 24/7 on the radio. It's even while we were sleeping, it was on. So somehow that seemed to creep into my head, I think. And I started off as a jazz musician, and then went to rock. And then later on, I ended up rockabilly ended up being my forte. So somehow that Hank Williams, it got in my brain, and it just became like a natural for me to play that kind of music.
Where did you grow up?
Initially in Trenton, New Jersey. The family's a New York family, but they moved from New York to Jersey, I guess, for work. And then as soon as I was old enough to, as soon as I graduated school, I moved back to New York.
So you were a guy from Trenton, New Jersey, who
Right.
grew up on Hank Williams,
Right, correct.
and like the old country,
Yeah.
and then
Honky tonk music.
you end up as a musician and an artist of zombie stuff.
Right, correct.
I tell you, that goes to show that pretty much no matter your background or
Right.
anything, you can end up doing what you love. You play your cards right and have the talent.
Yeah, I think kind of the way that works is, like they say, you are what you eat. And so not only does that, they refer to the body there, but it also applies to the mind. So it's kind of, you are what you do. So meaning what you practice your whole life and what you're exposed to, that really shapes you and determines, your persona really, and your tastes and your abilities as well.
Can I ask you your favorite zombie movie?
My favorite zombie movie? Yeah, it's an easy one. It's called, let me think, Return of the Living Dead. So
it was they burned the body and they went up into the clouds.
Precisely. Yeah. It's a comedy.
Yeah.
And actually, a bunch of my buddies worked on that. A lot of people don't know this, but it was written by the same guy that wrote the Alien movie, the initial Alien movie.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's written by Dan O'Bannon. So he's a comic guy. He worked on Heavy Metal magazine, as a matter of fact. So he worked for Heavy Metal magazine, and my buddy Bill Stout worked on the movie. He did the concept designs for the zombies. And that's my favorite one. It's a comedy, and it's very clever. The story, the way they they presented the zombies in a very fresh way. So there was a lot of things in there that you never saw before in the zombie movies that were very entertaining and very funny and very fresh.
I can absolutely agree with that. Before we wrap, I want to talk. I reserve one personal question of mine.
All right.
Have you ever done a zombie jubilee?
Why don't you think I know what that is? So explain to me what a zombie jubilee is.
Jubilee is the Marvel X-Men character. The girl that shoots fireworks and has the yellow jacket.
No, I've never done her. No,
You've never done her.
I thought you meant like a parade with a jubilee with thousands of zombies. No, I've never done that. Yeah. I've judged a couple, like some zombie walks. They bring me in sometimes to the Comic Cons to be a judge at the zombie walks. We'll have, they're going for the Guinness record, and they'll have 5,000, 6,000 zombies parade by me, and I have to pick the best costume and that kind of thing. So for me, that was a zombie jubilee. But the other one, the X-Men, I never did that. No.
You never have, because I actually interviewed Ivy Doom Kitty Friday.
Yeah.
And my favorite character is Jubilee from the X-Men.
Okay, yeah.
And so I asked her, hey, have you ever done Jubilee? And she's like, no, I don't really like Jubilee.
I got you.
Oh, God. So I'm batting zero this weekend.
All right. One of these days, man. One of these days.
I hope one day
One of these days you'll get your Jubilee.
Yes. Maybe it'll be on like a variant cover that you get or something. Anyway, I'm Lonnie with Untitled Network. I had the privilege of sitting here with Arthur Suydam. Thank you for coming on.
Greetings from Nashville.
Yes, come by and see us. We're going to be here for a few more hours. This is day 3, Sunday. and still not too late to get out here and kind of check out what they got going on. And hey, you got some prints over here. Those are they're 20 a piece, buy two get one right now.
Something like that.
Okay.
This is Zombie Central.
Zombie, yeah, you've got 1, 2, 3, something like half a dozen tables of some amazing work, and we actually bought the Nirvana Nevermind Zombie Baby.
How's that working for you?
Amazing.
I'm glad you like it.
My girlfriend absolutely loved it. She's happy I brought her over.
It's one of my favorites. It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite here? If you had to pick one?
My favorite is this one right here.
And that's front and center, actually. What are we looking at here?
So this is actually a painting that I did for a buddy of mine for his album. He did it was a Christian band actually.
Yeah.
Called 39 Stripes. So this was a painting I did for his album cover. I do a fair amount of album covers for bands.
That actually, if I was to look at that, I wouldn't know that was you.
Right.
Because I'm used to the Marvel zombies, the rough texture, the really creepy, everything torn apart look.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And that is a really...
It's sweet, but it's sweet and it's creepy. So therein lies the clues that it's me.
I will say that I think the mark of a good piece of art is something you can sit and talk about.
Yeah.
And I could sit and talk about that.
There you go.
So, anyway, I'm Lonnie with Untitled Nerd Network. We're live at Wizard World Nashville, and thanks for watching. This has been our interview with Zombie King, Arthur Suydam.